Hello and welcome back to another Delta Analysis video. Today's Delta Maractus, which is a pure steel type, which defensively is very good as like 10 resistances, which is insane, and only for 3 weaknesses, being fighting, ground, and fire. Offensively, steel is terrible, only like 3 super effective hits, although fairy is very good. Ice and rock aren't, defensively at least. And you get resisted by fire, water, steel, and electric, which are all very common. Stats, bad. It's a Maractus. 75 HP, 67 defenses. It will take a hit. Like steel type will absolutely help, right? But it won't take many. It won't take stab super effective hits. Well, if at all. 86 attack, okay. It's usable. 106 special attack, it's pretty solid, but it could be a lot better. And 60 speed is bad but manageable. Looking at its abilities, it gets 3 pretty good cool abilities. Motor Drive makes you an electric immunity and boosts your speed every time you get hit by it, and it stops Volt Switch, which is the main point that I like about it. And it can help on like non-speed boosting sets. Clear Body prevents stat drops from anything like Sticky Webs or Intimidate or random special attack drops. Main example being Shadow Ball. The rest is all super effective or not very effective as far as I'm aware, but I'm not very aware, to be fair. So yeah, Shadow Ball, it could prevent you from getting 2 hit KO'd, because of Split F drop and getting 3 hit KO'd instead, which is very important. Sometimes, very rarely, it's a niche situation where it's very important. Trace copies your opponent's ability, which could be very good, and it can be complete garbage and you don't want to use it. It depends on the matchup. It could be the best ability, could be the worst ability. It really depends on circumstances. Some relevant moves get screens to help your team set up, and like generally helps out defensively, although it can be defogged away obviously. Stealth Rock, good hazards. Baton Pass, U-turn for pivoting. Baton Pass if you want to pass stats, otherwise U-turn is generally better, because it does damage, and damage is always good, usually. There are times when damage is not good, but usually damage is very good. Baton Pass, you get a lot of setup moves to Baton Pass, so I'll go over them in a bit after the first set. Knockoff to remove items, always good. Mark Punch, Bullet Punch priority, especially Bullet Punch Stab, which is very good. And Thunder Wave to slow things down. The first set, which is the main set and like the only set I really have written out. Physical set, which you can run any of the abilities. I think Motor Drive is the best option, but you can pick any of them. Meteor Mesh is your main stab option because it's the strongest and it can raise your attack. Like 20% of the time you hit with like 10% chance to miss. I think my numbers might not be 100% accurate. It might be 10% chance to boost. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. You can look it up. I'm too lazy to do that. Like this is like the 6th recording. I'm tired. It failed every single time. Wild Charge, Ice Punch, great coverage. Ice and Electric is very good. Hits most things at least neutrally, which is why I opted for those 2 moves. Otherwise, you can run Bullet Punch for stab priority, especially on Shift Gear, Sword Dance stats. Oh, I completely forgot Shift Gear and Sword Dance. That's the setup. You get Sword Dance, very aggressive but doesn't boost speed. Shift Gear mainly boosts speed, also boosts attack by 1 stage, which is good if you want to have both speed and attack, which is generally what you want. But Sword Dance is more aggressive, which is if you run Sword Dance, I would recommend Bullet Punch and maybe Mach Punch depending on the situation, but especially Bullet Punch because the Bullet Punch doesn't require speed boost. Also, I would run Motor Drive on Sword Dance if you can bait that out, bait like a Volt Switch and get speed boost, and then Sword Dance and like hopefully you outspeed enough things. But with 60 base speed, that might not be the case. Knockoff removes items, good for Psychics and Ghosts. U-turn, pivot, although it's kind of weird on setup set to pivot, but it could also be generally physical without setup, so you can still run pivoting. Mach Punch, niche priority over Bullet Punch. I generally wouldn't use it over Bullet Punch, but it's an option. It's a better offensive type, obviously, so that's why you might want to use it. And it's a second priority if you want to run like Sword Dance, Bullet Punch, Mach Punch, or something like that. Then Headbutt helps with poison types and fighting types. That's really it. Explosion is kind of nice if you go like a Shift Gear or like Sword Dance and a Boom. which is also always a good option. Also gets agility, which I didn't put here, but the agility could be good, like agility source dance and then like well charge ice punch, because meteor mash won't really help you offensively, so like coverage. But yeah, it's an option. And then, oh yeah, I don't have anything else. The two things I wanted to mention: the setup options you want can Baton Pass, current Baton Pass Calm Mind, Shift Gear, Home Class, Swords Dance, Rock Polish, Autotomize. I think that's about it. But that's, well, Rock Polish, Autotomize is basically the same thing. It's like it has a lot of setup options, and it can Baton Pass them all. So that's cool. And the special set, which I didn't include, I don't think its special set is very good. It's mostly a bit awkward because you don't get recovery, you don't have that good coverage. The coverage you run is basically Calm Mind, like the best set in my opinion is Calm Mind, Autotomize, Flash Cannon, Thunderbolt, or Flash Cannon Discharge, whichever one you prefer. It also gets Energy Ball and Overheat. Overheat is generally not that great, but I like Flash Cannon Thunderbolt because the only type that resists both is Electric type. And then you run Motor Drive to boost your speed, but mostly because you're then immune to Electric, and then Electric types that wall you also wall them mostly because they don't really get coverage, generally speaking. Like something like Manectric obviously can hit you with Overheat, Zapdos can hit you with Heat Wave, but generally speaking, they don't really get the best coverage. So you can take advantage of that, but not caring about hitting them. But can also depend on matchup. I think that's basically everything that the Maractus has. So yeah, I think it's a decent niche pick, like very cheap niche pick, and I do think it has potential, but I don't think it's a great steel type to pick. Like there are many better steel types that do the steel typing more justice than this thing. This thing is mostly like a rogue sweeping semi-support mon that doesn't really do that well, and it will probably die pretty quickly. And yeah, there are like a lot of steel types is just better than this. So that's Delta Maractus. Next up is the first Delta Crystal, the bad one, unfortunately. But yeah, the other Delta Crystal is insane. But yeah, see y'all then. Goodbye.